Welcome back to Outnumbered. Jeb Bush making his first major foreign policy speech as a potential presidential candidate, and the former Florida governor mentioning his father and his brother in an apparent attempt to set himself apart from them. Have a listen.
I love my brother. I love my dad. I actually love my mother as well. I hope that's okay. And I admire their service to the nation and the difficult decisions that they had to make. But I'm my own man, and my views are shaped by my own thinking and my own experiences.
He also said some mistakes were made in Iraq during his brother's administration, but he praised the 2007 troop surge, calling it one of the most historic acts of courage politically of any president. Andrea, I'm going to go to you. How would you grade his speech?
It was okay. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not really buying the I'm my own man thing, because he hired, almost 24 of his brother's advisors.
Right.
So I think that's going to be really tough for him to overcome. And I think he's going to get the questions constantly about why he's not his brother or why he's not his father. And in a lot of ways, he is like them. And I think that's a problem for conservatives. And I think that's why he's going to have a really tough time in the primary explaining a lot of his positions, because the compassionate conservatism went along with a lot of spending and a lot of things that made us scratch our heads.
Kennedy, what do you think about what Andrea talked about? I mean, these foreign policy advisors, Paul Wolfowitz is sort of the face of the Iraq war.
Exactly. He's got Paul Wolfowitz and George Shultz. He's a whitewashed neocon. What do you want me to say? He's not my favorite kind of Republican. He's going to become an economic populist, which is really dangerous. And I'm liking more what he has to say about immigration, despite what he has to say about Common Core. The one intelligent thing he's doing right now is differentiating himself in foreign policy, because those are shortcomings for Chris Christie, Scott Walker, and Rand Paul to some extent.
Anyone want to defend Jeb?
Actually, I'd like to yield all of my time to the judge for two reasons. For one, you lived in Florida and he was the governor.
Yes.
And second, you just shared something with the couch. You were a first.
Yes. Well, I was.
And he was part of that.
Well, he actually wasn't part of that. I ran, but he appointed more minorities to the bench in Florida than any governor ever will. I mean, almost his entire tenure as a governor in Florida, most of the appointments to the bench were women, African Americans, and Hispanics. And that was a good thing, because prior to that, the bench was 95% older white men in Florida. So I like Jeb. I thought he was a great governor for Florida. I don't agree with all of his positions. I'm not a fan of Common Core, but I've also given up on the idea, and I think America needs to give up on the idea of finding a candidate who they agree with everything on. Because if you agree with everything on your candidate, I guarantee you that other people don't. And you're going to end up, if you do get somebody in there, it's going to be somebody who's so far to one side that they're never going to win the general election.
Interesting.
All right. Let's move on to